Okay, so thank you very much, Dashankar. Once again, it is a pleasure to come to teach here, though online. It is more convenient for some of us and for some of you also. And I was just going through the details of all the participants, and I was very impressed actually. And I saw that most of you, I think, are coming from a quantitatively inclined discipline, not a very, I cannot say quantitative, because we are having that boundaries, gradually disappearing. But then it will be all the more nice if you slowly get to know about the qualitative researches, which are nowadays becoming very popular. Since I come from the discipline of social work, um, qualitative methodologies are very close to my heart. And though I am originally trained in quantitative work, because originally I'm trained in economics, then I shifted over to social work. But I have now come to understand that knowing all the different kinds of methodologies are very important, because ultimately it is what you want to reflect from the field in the most appropriate manner. So it is nothing that I will have to follow a qualitative methodology, or I have to follow a quantitative methodology. But as learners, we have to know all types of methodologies so that we can appropriately practice whatever, whenever is appropriate for our endeavor to reflect reality and contribute to knowledge domain. So without um, wasting more time, I will just share the screen, and I will try to limit myself in talking, so that in case you have any queries, you may unmute yourself and ask me there and then. Very detailed type of an elaboration that you want. But in case you have a lot of things to ask, then we may at the end talk about them, or you may also contact me later on. And that is it. And since research designs have no boundary, actually, that is what I would like to talk about today. You may always go through dissertations, you may always go through studies which have followed the particular qualitative methodologies, and those are the best learnings. Because I know I will be just talking to you about the theories, but the theoretical perspectives, but you have to read people's works who have used the particular designs. So that is just the lifelong homework that I'm giving to you as researchers. Okay, so I will just try to present my screen. If you can see it, just acknowledge it. If you cannot see it also, please report it to me. Okay, 1 minute. Mm. 1 minute. Okay, so I hope the screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So this is my email. In case you have things to talk about in details, you may always write to me. And these are certain ways you may acquire knowledge, which is authority, tradition, common sense, media, and personal experience. We have to know such things because very often our researches tend to get diluted, particularly in qualitative methodologies, because the drawing the boundary is important. whether we have received the knowledge from common sense, whether we have received the knowledge from a tradition or an authority. These are alternatives to getting knowledge, but we as social researchers, we have to be very careful that the knowledge that we acquire from the reality or has the basics, has the scientific base to which will be different from the given sources of knowledge as shown in the slide. So this is just a beginning. So if we have to know the qualitative, we also have to know the quantitative. And all of you must be knowing, because as I gather, most of you have come from a discipline which uses more of quantitative research. So it is researchers using the logical positivistic method and try to measure concepts into very categorical and very specific quantitative terms, try to test hypotheses, hypothetical generalizations, and try to analyze and work on causal relationships. Whereas in qualitative research, we try to understand context-specific phenomena, and we try to forget about statistical testing, and we try to find out how phenomenon, events, experiences unfold naturally, or they spontaneously come out from the participants. And we do not actually try to find out what causes what, or we do not want to generalize. We usually do not want to also predict, but we want to eliminate, we want to understand, we want to explore, and we want to find out the underlying meanings of experiences. Data can be both qualitative and quantitative, and research designs in quantitative are many, but the most used are descriptive and experimental designs. We have others. Whereas in qualitative research designs, the classical research designs are grounded theory, ethnography, and phenomenology. And we also have some others in the periphery. Primarily, I will be talking about these three research designs and some more, which are in that penumbra region. Regarding the data collection methods, it is very interesting to learn about qualitative data collection methods, which is again another separate area of understanding in a separate class. But we do have very strong data collection methods like in participant observation, direct observation, in-depth interviewing, unstructured in-depth or intensive interviewing, case studies, FGDs, focus group discussions using of projective techniques, and many others. So actually projective techniques is an umbrella term where we have different ways to bring out the understandings, the experiences of participants in the research process. And whereas in quantitative data collection methods, we have the survey, we have checklists, we have matrices. So these are the differences. As in projective techniques, there are various ways of trying to, and there is no standardized method of data collection that you can promote or you can prescribe. In different settings, through an in-depth stay with the participants, the researcher's role is to understand or bring out which is the best technique that can be used. So there are, this slide shows some of the projective techniques like guided fantasy, role plays, leading statements, putting forward leading statements like imagine life without and let the participant think on it. So there are various ways of collection of data. If you are interested, that then you have to try to find out and go through all sorts of researches where they have used different ways of data collection, which you will find in the journals specifically promoting qualitative research. So that will be an interesting study. Regarding data analysis, again, there is this way of quantitative and qualitative data analysis. This is just to warm yourself up to the separate domains of qualitative and quantitative research, which sometimes become watertight compartments, but slowly there are researchers which are trying to use both, and that is again up to the need of the research. So in qualitative, you have coding, recognizing relationships, patterns, and also developing or contributing to hypothesis. Whereas in quantitative, as you all must be knowing, that you have to measure, you have to group, recode, and you have to have your statistical measures done. Okay, so this is the slide which shows you this is very easy, and even I think UG level student will know, but the understanding at your level of academics will be different. So it is important that you choose your topic, and that topic will definitely reflect the exploration that you would like to do. Of course, you may have your limitations. Then, of course, you have to put forward the questions or the statements that you would like to probe. And then comes the choosing of the design, which is, as we all know, the blueprint of research, which would engulf the entire modality of doing the research, the methodology of research. And once we are confident, we can start data collection, and most probably I will be talking of primary research using primary data, and analyzing, interpreting, and informing others. So important. I mean, each step is important in its own way, but you see the knowing of the particular research design which you are going to use forms just the midrib of all the steps in the research process. So it is so important that it links your first two steps to the later steps. So choosing the design or understanding or knowing which design to use is important in qualitative and quantitative researches. Qualitative approach is like a fountain, as we all know. It enhances the data which you get from the field, and it is sort of, you have a few respondents, few participants, and then the data just flows out from it. There's an in-depth interaction, in-depth communication, and just unlikely that the quantitative research will be like the pyramid, and then there will be the survey. For example, the survey which will ultimately result in testing of hypothesis. So it will be like the pointed tip, unlike the fountain approach. So what is it basically? It is a qualitative research is that we, very crudely, if we say that we try to write, we try to talk, we try to describe in narrations, in statements, in words, than numbers, generally. Okay, and we believe that reality that we would like to capture through our research is dynamic, is ever changing, and it is not stagnant, and it will need an effort to be reflected onto your research. And there is a need to, the researcher's role is important to bring out the perspective of the participants, That is important. The participants, the people who will talk to you, the event that will be explored by you are the ones that are most important. And bringing out the perspective, that is, we call it the insider perspective, is important. And it is just a simple act of understanding that we want to do, rather than the very complexities of predictions and statistics. We just want to understand. So, and that is so very difficult, because we are, as an entity, as a human, understand other human beings, whether in as individuals or groups or community, participants in an agency. But this word understanding is really, really very difficult. The subjective dimensions of human experience, it changes, it will differ, experiences will differ from person to person. So generalization does not always hold in specific contexts. And there is the aim of looking at reality from a holistic perspective, rather than a reductionistic perspective, or narrowing down or trying to generalize the reality. So that is what explains qualitative research in general. Whereas quantitative approach is a data condenser. So I will just skip these. So this is, you can just go through the PPT, which I will circulate. So this is just a color coding of differences between quantitative and qualitative research. If you have anything to ask, you may ask later on. So otherwise, I will move on directly to the research designs. In qualitative, we construct social reality. We try to find out the cultural meaning, the interactive processes or events, as a mirror image of the reliability and validity in quantitative research. We also have reliability and validity in qualitative research, and there are different ways of ensuring that the research follows the rigor. And simplistically, we accept that the researcher, or the entire context of research, will have to acknowledge the presence of values, and the context, of course, is primal. We do not want to be an extensive in researching few subjects, few cases, going in for thematic or other forms of analysis. And very, very important, as all of us are researchers in the process, to understand the role and responsibility of the researcher in qualitative research. Okay, so we will not go into deduction. So primarily, what is the approach? The approach is that you go in from observation or from understanding reality to contribution to theory, which is abstraction. Okay. It is something to understand that qualitative and quantitative research is to each other, because if you want to know reality, there may be the need for a plethora of understanding, a plethora of reality, which will come to you through qualitative research. Lot of themes, lot of happenings, emotions, sensitive experiences, and then finally some themes come out from it, which can be again taken singly and then put into quantitative researches, quantitative prediction, or it can go parallelly, as we now have the mixed methodology, mixed methods research. So it is not that either we become qualitative researchers or we become quantitative researchers. We just be researchers and use whatever method is appropriate, or both methods if needed. Now, literature review is a very it treads the thin line that whether we should go in for an in-depth literature review before we uh, go for data collection. It depends. As we cannot say that, it again, the researcher's role starts right from here. It is that you may have a cursory review done, which may lead you to the focus of the study. Otherwise, if there are field level experiences, or if the researcher uh, has a does know what to explore, then even literature review can be done at the end of data collection. So the purpose is to avoid leading both the researcher and the participants into what has already been done. So just that they can give you certain clues as to what which direction you may go, but it is nothing which is mandated. Okay, and very, very important is setting the field for data collection, and you have to the researcher should be acknowledging the fact that there is a need for reciprocity in terms of decision making. It is an iterative action that you need to do, and both the researcher and the participant needs to have a very, very comfortable interaction and understanding and sharing, and this should be done all from one's own will, to share the thoughts and feelings about the particular phenomena that the researcher would like to explore. So there is this very, very comfortable and convenient relationship between the participant and the researcher, and that environment must be ushered in by the researcher himself or herself. Contrasting with this, where in quantitative studies data is collected in more specific fields, controlled settings, and the researcher is trained to be neutral, objective, and unbiased. The participants or the informants must refer are the ones who are the most important individuals in the research, and we have to acknowledge that they should be equal partners to research. That is, the right of the researcher is equal to the right of the participant, and the participant has all the right to not to share anything that the participant is unwilling, and also to have the authority to know what the researcher is going to reflect. So the researcher should allow participants to be equal partners, and the participants must be selected so that they are the ones who are confident to share the particular experience or the phenomenon, versus the simple random sampling or the random selection that is proposed by quantitative research. Full selection of participants, and primarily the purposive sampling is the one which is used, and the participants must have first-hand experience, and the researcher should establish the criteria and the rationale for sample selection. And the goal is not for generalization, but rich descriptions of phenomena by those who have experienced it. The data collection should continue till the participants' descriptions become repetitive and becomes equal or same or similar to the previously collected data. So there, the researcher gets the understanding that the data collection is complete. Okay. Data analysis begins when the researcher understands the position or the positionality of the self in the entire data set and tries to acknowledge the inner biases, inner preconditions, and then tries to start data collection and follows the process of reading, rereading, and then applying the intuitions, analyzing, synthesizing, and finally preparing the report. So in each qualitative data analysis, there should be a section on the role of the researcher or the strengths of the researcher as a part of bringing out the rigor of qualitative research. Good qualitative research, although it's a very judgmental term, will try to contribute to a theory or a theoretical framework, should be innovative, and should have a very, very transparent way of reporting. And that is called qualitative quality. And it's a very a term which Pratt had used in 2008. Now, these are the four characteristics of in this slide. So primarily it should be in the natural setting, apart from the laboratories in quantitative research. Participants' perceptions are the key, and the research should be reflexive in that data gathering and analysis would be iterative, and the data collection need not follow a very, very standardized methods. Innovations and changes in collection of data can happen at any point of time. The best practices are accuracy checks. There should be checks every time, wherever possible. These are, the reliability and validity or the rigor of qualitative research has to be prepared separately. That's a separate lecture altogether. Participants' voices are most important. There should be multiple levels of analysis, multiple methods of data collection, novel data collection methods, have a theoretical contribution, and using of triangulation techniques. Okay, so this is not in our thing, and researchers' responsibility is trying to establish credibility, transferability, dependability, and confirmability. And credibility is like trying to find out the truth of reality, the truth of the situation, that what I would like to project is actually what is happening in the field. And how can you find it? How can you do it? How can you establish it? Enhanced by prolonged time in the field, repeatedly or persistently observing and interacting with the participants, using different or multiple data sources, methods, data types, investigations, and theories, discussion with the peers, reporting of negative cases, cases which do not conform to your research, adequately have referential contributions, check member checks or participant checks or informant feedbacks. Whether the research can be repeated, so it refers to the stability and trackability of the changes in data over time. It reflects the reality that people's situations do change, and that reality differs for people, and the researcher would want to determine the extent to which another researcher with similar training and rapport with participants would make the same observations. So there will be something called the audit trail, which you need to do or you need to keep a track on. Transferability is the concept whether the research is applicable to other contexts, which is concerned with generalizability or fittingness of the findings to other settings, populations, and context, which you need to report in details, and report must provide sufficient detail about the self and the context, processes, and the researcher-participant relationship so that readers can assess to the extent of the researcher's responsibility. And whether it is conformable or the neutrality had been maintained, and that whether the conclusions depend upon the subjects and the conditions of inquiry rather than on the researcher. So how researcher had maintained the neutrality through one's own training or through one's own learning. Here also audit trail is important. The researcher must explicitly mention personal biases. So this is an audit trail which you can go through later on. What are the advantages of qualitative research? It focuses on human experiences and the meanings ascribed to the experiences by the persons who have experienced it. It is not by the researcher, how the researcher has understood it. And it fails where the quantitative research it rises where the quantitative methods fail, and somewhere the participants' true reality is reflected, and that is what ultimately counts in research. And there is caution, there is a caveat that the objectivity and generalizability is a challenge, but which can be overcome by the researcher's awareness and training. Okay, now coming to the three classic research designs in qualitative research, we have phenomenology, grounded theory, and ethnography. And we also have other research designs in the periphery, like case study research designs and narrative research, and there are others. So, but then they are in the periphery, so you can nicely understand them once you understand the the three classical research designs. Now, phenomenology, I think, is a very, very commonly used among the qualitative researchers in social work, describe, tries to find out the lived in experiences of the tries to provide transcendental and eidetic signs of consciousness. And there is an effort to describe the meaning of the lived experiences from the perspective of the participants. I will be giving you certain researches that has used phenomenology and how the writing, you also have to understand how qualitative research is written, how lived experiences are reported. So, I mean, how the methodology is written. So this is important. So I will circulate some of the dissertations that I could get, which have used phenomenology or other research designs in their research. And phenomenology also tries to understand the phenomena by a systematic and rigorous examination of it. It may be an event, it may be the life of an individual, it may be a behavior, it may be a phenomena, anything. And the purpose is to describe the essence of the lived experience, the underlying meaning. Okay. Now, what is the philosophical basis? What are the philosophical tenets in phenomenology? The belief is that whatever is known by persons or individuals or groups, communities, um, is there in the consciousness. It lives in the conscious self. And there is an approach, there is an effort to access that consciousness. It may be the life of an elderly. It may be prison inmates. It may be the experiences of violence. So that is there. Even if we may not show it, or we may not talk about it in very general terms, the struggle, the sadness, the challenges are there in our consciousness, and there are methods to access the consciousness also. And that is also different among individuals. So the phenomenologists believe that realities are multiple. The individuals may have totally different understandings of the same event. Say the same event has happened, say the same abuse has happened to different, maybe to the same gender, maybe to the same age group of individuals. But the reality that are constructed is different. And it is important to understand the differences so as to help, or so as to intervene in that particular world of that participant. So the realities which are constructed by the individuals within the social context or within the lives is different. The focus is to describe the meaning of the lived experiences from the perspective of the participant. So usually the questions start with what. So what is this and what is that? So the trying is to understand what the person, what the individual thinks about that particular phenomenon in the person's life. Now, the researcher occurs or occupies a very, very significant role. Actually, the researcher becomes the instrument for data collection. Say mostly the if you are doing it through a case study, then we have to design a case study guide, that is the tool of data collection. But in most of the case study guides, you hardly have more than maybe maximum 6 to 7 statements that you want to explore. But that 6 to 7 statements that you have to explore from the participant may take 5 days, even take a month. So actually it's the way the researcher places the statements, places if you have it in the form of a question to the participant. So one question maybe will lead to 2 days of communication. So the researcher somewhere becomes the instrument of data collection. That is very important because it's a huge responsibility for the researcher, and the researcher should be comfortable speaking, should be enjoying communication. The basic strength of a qualitative researcher is that the person must be comfortable in communicating with people. And of course, good rapport, establish good rapport with the participants, that comes first. And the preconditions, the beliefs that the researcher as a human being has nurtured inside, needs bracketing, needs to be put in a limitation that, okay, say, for example, the life of injecting drug users, if, or say the coping strategies or the, socialization challenges or whatever, maybe the point of exploration, and such an individual may be present in the very close community of a researcher. So automatic empathy or sympathy, if shown through the communication by the researcher, may distort the reflection of reality. So it is difficult, because as human beings, it is difficult to set aside our own beliefs and our own knowing. But then it is not to, it may be thought of as trying to train yourself to put forward the communication, or set the environment such that the beliefs or the preconditions are put in a bracket, are not brought in front while communicating to the participant. But acknowledging that fact is more important. Acknowledging the fact that, okay, I have this experience in my own life. So let me acknowledge it, and let me now put the cap of a researcher. Okay. The samples are usually small and purposive. Participants should be able to and willing to talk about their experiences. So the ethical considerations are very important in qualitative research, that the participants should be, you should take time to select and also to confirm participation. Whether actually it is you who are somewhat directing the participant to cooperate with you, or whether the participant is willing to talk more, spontaneously. So in each and every step, there should be honesty. Otherwise, the rigor of research will be affected. But it should be large enough, the sample should be large enough to get a rich description of the research phenomena. Okay. Usually in phenomenology, in-depth interviews, it's a very common data collection method in qualitative research. Also, written descriptions of experiences in diaries and journals. Sometimes you may need to supplement in-depth exploration through interviews with written descriptions of the participants. The participant may have been keeping a journal, daily journals. Sometimes we keep it in our mobiles, maybe notepad or something like that, or the habit of writing a diary, where the understanding, the experiences, the pain, the sadness is spontaneously written. Observations, of course, participant, non-participant, different types of observations, and multiple interviews with the same participant to reflect the meaning of the lived experiences. So it may so happen that one day the understanding of that particular phenomena that we want to explore, the reality described is different from the reality described the earlier day. It may so happen. So the researcher should accept that there has been a change in the constructed reality or in the reported reality by the participants, and try to explore further, try to probe further. So unless and until the researcher is um, believes that, okay, the reality as reported by the participants has now come to the level of saturation. The interviewing should continue even with the same singular participant. So that level of probing should be trained in the minds of the researcher. Okay, so data analysis is as you should be immersed in the data. That is, immersed in the data means that you should have enough data, enough experiences written, enough reporting, enough writing, enough understanding. And that is generated by reading, rereading, because, even as human beings, we have different ways of interpreting. And so reading it once and rereading it again may bring in newer understandings. For again, there may be comparative analysis, looking for patterns, differences, and similarities, and then reducing into smaller and smaller number of categories to arrive at a consistent description. And finally, this is what we tend to forget, that the description should be shared with the participants for verification. This is a very, very important way in which you can establish the rigor of research, which generally we do not, as researchers, we just ignore that. The maximum that we do is write a sentence in our acknowledgement that we acknowledge, or we are all very thankful to my participants or to my research respondents. But that's it. But very rarely, even if it is not for great things that I will be as researchers changing my research setting, but more so you have to share it with the participants in qualitative research for verification, that have I understood you correctly? Is this what you meant to tell me? Have I understood you well? Have I understood you enough? So maybe not that day, like, of course, that day you can also do in the same moment, like paraphrasing, or you may, prepare a report based on your understanding, and you may just share it with the participant, and the participant also may add on to something in that, or may just, verify it. A review of literature is conducted generally or ideally after data collection and analysis is complete for your interpretation. Ultimately, what you will have in your hand, the report that will bring out the essence of the experience, and the person reading it should have an understanding of what it is like to experience the phenomena. Like, sometimes it is very difficult to, as I said, write qualitative research. Like, actually, what should come out from phenomenology? What should come out from grounded theory? What should be the ultimate takeaway from an ethnographic research? So in phenomenology, what is the ultimate takeaway is that the experience, the phenomena, the event that we would like to explore as lived experience of the participant should be reflected in your research. Bas. And anybody else reading it should know, as if they will be able to feel it. They will be able to know what it is like to experience that phenomena. So this is the ultimate. Grounded theory is another classical methodology, which the basic focus is that it systematically collects data and analyzes data with the aim of, Glaser is the father figure in grounded theory, um, tries to generate theory about the patterns of human behavior in social context. So it is more of interactions. It is more of, you know, patterns of human behavior or human beings in a context, particularly in social contexts, that grounded theory tries to focus on. Um, According to Strauss, the grounded theory methodology does not attempt to understand social phenomena as the individual participants in that social phenomena see it, but rather it tries to uncover the patterns in the experiences of different individuals as components of that phenomenon or as part of the social phenomena or the social context. So the focus is on social processes, whereas in phenomenology, you may nicely concentrate on individuals, individual phenomena, individual persons, but grounded theory primarily employs groups, communities, societies, and tries to see the processes, tries to see the actions, tries to see the dynamics, how people interact in social contexts, and tries to see the patterns in social life. Sometimes even participants, the individual participants may not know it or may not have observed it, but the researcher may uncover it through this particular methodology. Say, for example, a particular tribe, say, for example, a particular ethnic group, just a group of adolescents. So anybody in their context, their behavior, their ways of interaction, that is what probably or mostly grounded theory tries to work on. The goal is to develop a theory about the processes under investigation in a natural setting, useful in areas where little is known or where a new perspective is needed. So where you can understand what sort of intervention is needed or how you can improve the system. Tries to identify the core processes and the periphery, the peripheral processes, the subsidiaries, secondary processes. What are the main processes and what are the subsidiary or secondary processes? The philosophy is that, like in phenomenology, the philosophy was that there is a conscious understanding of all our experiences in life, and the researcher has to access that understanding. In grounded theory, the philosophy is that there are certain symbols. It may be a language, it may be a word, it may be an action, it may be some objects, it may be an activity, dancing, singing, whatever, or it may be any words used which bring out bring out processes, which bring out patterns of communication, which bring out patterns of interaction, and human beings react to these in their everyday life, and the that event is constructed. And interactions with others, communication with others, being in a group bring out the meanings, and it is shaped by the common interactions. So questions um, may be broad and may, as the qualitative research always would like to advise us, that may change several times as you observe and as you analyze the data. So it's a concurrent iterative process. So mostly you would like to inquire on the ing part of it. What is happening? How are they behaving? What are they doing? So ing, what is the process of? And what is the role of a researcher? The role of a researcher is, of course, to be trained in studying or be trained in observing, being alert in observing the behavior in the social setting that influences the activities, the events, the interaction, and sometimes have to participate in it as well. And of course, be an observer to it. And the researcher should be clear about the assumptions that you need to be acknowledging, whether sometimes maybe the researcher may come from a different social background, or maybe coming from a different age group, but the researcher needs to put forward that clearly and transparently to the group or to the setting, and make it very clear, but at the same time doing the rapport building. The researcher may use past experiences and assumptions to better understand the processes being observed. So anything that the researcher does is only to gain access to that setting and to observe the interaction and the social processes, so as to understand what can be improved or what can be intervened at, or what actually is happening in that social context. Sample constitutes the participants who are experiencing the social process under study, and the size, as we know, is determined by either theoretical sampling or the saturation concept. Data analysis and collection are concurrent. This is for actually, since this particular methodology deals with social phenomena or social activities, social happenings, it may be concurrent, and there is a need sometimes for audio or videotaped interviews, observations, field notes, and participation and observation in the social group. The grounded theorist just grabs each and every happening in that social context. It may be outside the questions or the probes or the statements that have been written in the guide. So each and every observation, each and every language, each and every word spoken, each and every activity done, each and every reaction, each and every conflict, each and every appreciation, everything has to be noted by the theorist. And data are obtained through a combination of participant observation, interviews, reading the literature, and self-reflection. Review of literature may be done because you may need to have an understanding of the literature, maybe more as in terms of compared to the phenomenological approach in qualitative research. But it should not be guiding you or directing you to your own observations and analysis. And the researcher tries to, of course, integrate the literature with the emerging theory after the data has been collected during saturation and report writing. The third research design is ethnography, and we all know that this is primarily borrowed from the discipline of anthropology, and the this methodology tries to understand human behavior in the cultural context in which it is embedded. So this primarily brings in the cultural point of view and tries to understand the way in which people, people behave, people live, people experience from the insider's perspective versus what the researcher or an outsider understands it. Primarily tries to see, patterns of life, patterns of living, what guides their thoughts, actions, daily life, sentiments, particularly reflected in their, language, dress, food, traditions, and customs. It's the work of describing a culture. And sometimes, as we all know, tries to make explicit to readers or to people who would like to know what is actually implicit. The purpose is to make that which is unknown, which is hidden, which is not brought out very easily. So try to make explicit what is implicit in a cultural group. And it follows a cyclical pattern of data analysis. And as mostly in all forms of research designs. And the goal is to discover cultural patterns in the data people use to make sense out of their own experiences. Now, again, what will be in your hands after your research? So it may be as in the form of a cultural inventory, that is, what are the specifics of their culture, particularly in the form of cultural events, dress codes, food, language, lifestyle, indigenous health, etc., etc. And also a final descriptive report that may be in the form of a book or a monograph, which will highlight only that particular culture specifically. So you should have this at the end of your ethnographic work. I would also talk a little about the case study research, but you may have, a case study in a phenomenological approach to qualitative research also. So, but since there are many sites, there are many books, or there is literature which says that case study research is a different type of, is a separate qualitative research design. So I would just like to talk about it a little. So case studies deal with the study of a case in a real life contemporary context or setting. And the case should be bounded or described within the parameters. The inclusion of that case should be determined. It may be there are researches with one single case also, or there are researches with a few cases. Cases, may range from different contexts. So there may be successful, case studies of, say, women entrepreneurs, or there may be case studies of a very um, successful startup. So depends on what your research focus is. It is actually attributed to the origins of to the disciplines of anthropology and social sciences. So it can be used within quantitative or descriptive research also, but it is sometimes mostly used for qualitative researches. Okay, so this is the historical part. And there is also another type of research design, which is sometimes called as narrative research. Narrative research is mostly a biographical study, which is writing, studying, and recording of the experiences of another person's life. And it is also sometimes autoethnography, in which the writing and recording is done by the subject itself. And it is in the form of a narrative. It's a life history portraying one person's entire life. Oral history, reflection of events, their causes and effects. So some disciplines or some types of explorations may benefit from a narrative research, but in a discipline like mine, we mostly try to do a phenomenological or grounded theory research, because we need to develop interventions, as the social work discipline focuses on that. The characteristics of narrative research is, restoring the process of gathering stories, analyzing them for key elements, then rewriting and putting it in a chronological sequence. Like, there will be narratives, and they are usually writings of the entire experiences. And then from primarily, I mean, usually it's a chronological understanding of what happened after what and why it has happened. Like, you may, have the narration from an elderly migrant, an elderly now who was a migrant, and then how everything happened, the process of migration, say, for example. So it will be restoried through the narratives. At every point, what was the decision taken and why it was taken, what was the context. And so, this will bring in the understanding of that particular event of migration. And the collaboration occurs between participants and researchers during the collection of the stories. And through that, insightful understandings in the life is acquired. Now, there will be a comparison of the 5 approaches. To these 6 categories. Okay, focus of approach, unit of analysis, research problem suited for, forms of data collection, data analysis strategy, and research outcomes. So this is just a small exercise that has been done. And let me just say once again, focus. I mean, we have more or less gone through phenomenology as a research design, grounded theory as a research design, ethnography as a research design, case study as a research design, and narrative research as a research design. So what is the focus of approach in all these 5s? What is the unit of analysis in all these 5s? What sort of research problem is suited in all these 5 types of method designs? What are the forms of data collection in these? What is the data analysis strategy in these? Again, in a nutshell, in a just skeletal format, And what are the research outcomes? So probable research outcomes, because all of them come under the umbrella of qualitative research designs. But if we have to understand from the bird's eye view, then these are some of the categories in which we may understand the different qualitative research designs. In the focus of approach, in terms of the first criteria, which is the focus of approach, N is the narrative research design, P is the phenomenological research design, GT is, of course, the grounded theory, E is ethnography, and CS is case study. So the five alphabets, of course, GT and CS, they represent the different qualitative designs. Now, narrative research design tries to explore, understand, bring out the stories of the life of an individual. Phenomenology tries to understand the meaning, the essence, the underlying feelings of that particular experience. It may not happen throughout the entire life, unlike the narratives. Okay, so whereas narratives try to explore usually the life of an individual or the life of an organization, phenomenology tries to understand the in-depth understanding or in-depth essence of that particular experience. It may be experience of violence, it may be experience of success, it may be experience of a particular time period in your life, say staying in the prisons. It may be the experience of as a patient in an ICU. So phenomenology does that. Grounded theory tries to develop a theory grounded in data, because, you know, there will be observations and understandings of that process, the interactions, the communications, the social context, and then there will be patterns, similarities, dissimilarities, which will be brought and contributed to the concepts, the abstract concepts, and then there will be analysis of that. So try the grounded theory, the focus of that will be primarily to develop the patterns of concepts or relationships or interactions in the social context, in the social event that the researcher has chosen for his or her research. Ethnography, simple in terms of describing and interpreting a culture sharing group. It is primarily related towards studying culture. Case studies, or, you know, of course, you know, the culture again is a broad understanding. So it may have value systems, it may have the behavior, daily lifestyles, the language, the events, the activities, different forms of practices. So entire gamut of what comes under the concept of culture. And case studies tries to develop an in-depth description and analysis of a selected case. Okay. As far as the unit of analysis is concerned, in these 5 research designs, 1 minute. Okay. Uh, the narrative research will deal with one or more individuals. Most probably they deal with individuals because it is easy to focus on one life or a unit of life. There are even researches where even one individual is the unit of analysis, and even PhDs have been awarded. So whatever it is, so one or more individuals, the unit of analysis of phenomenological research is several individuals who have shared their experience. The grounded theory focuses on a process, an action, interaction involving many individuals. Say, for example, young people, or say, for example, adolescents, how they utilize um, the library, or how they utilize the um, clinics or health setups. So that may be a process, an action, or interaction involving many individuals, so as to understand what exactly encourages them, what exactly prohibits them in that particular social action. The unit of analysis for ethnographic research is usually a group, the culture group. And the unit of analysis for a case study is one particular event or one particular program or one individual or an activity. So it has to be an unit. Okay. Now, where do we suitably position these research designs? What type of research problems are suited for these particular research designs? So in narrative researches, usually you try to understand it's a collection of experiences, um, most probably chronologically or sometimes even spatially across spaces, across different regions, and you get to know the entire the life and the points in life which are significant, which were significant, and which have had turning points. So to tell stories of experiences, primarily, that is narration. And it is primarily done for very enriched life experiences which need to be reflected upon. In phenomenology, the the research problem which is most suited for is when there is an experienced phenomena, a lived phenomena, as we say. I mean, for even very simple lives. Say, for example, the life of a new mother. If you have to look in for postpartum depression or coping strategies or conflicts within oneself, the the level of support in the household, whatever, feeling of oneself. So there should be a lived phenomena, common lived phenomena of the participants. Abuse or experiences of tuitions after school of a particular age group of students. So there is a phenomena. There is an experience, a lived experience, and there it is common across a particular group or an individuals, and which you would like to explore. Grounded theory usually tries to focus on any field reality where there is a social process in action. Um, Ethnography tries to describe the culture of a group, describes, interprets, and the case studies try to focus on an in-depth understanding of a particular case or cases. Like, as I said, case studies can very well gel with phenomenology. So that can be done. There you can use the best, since case study at the same time is a research design, it is also a data collection method. So case studies can be, utilized across research designs. Now, what are the different forms of data collection? Although this is not comprehensive, it is not all inclusive, but just to give an idea, in narratives, definitely you will have the documents. You may have the diaries that the person has kept. You may have some photographs that have been clicked, old photographs or something like that, newspapers, and of course your interviews. Interviews will be common across all the qualitative research designs. In-depth, unstructured, exploratory interviews, and observation. Observation will also be common. These two are the pillars of qualitative data collection: observation and unstructured, in-depth, intense interviews. Documents, but the types of documents may slightly be different. For phenomenology also, you may have documents. You may have legal documents. Say, for example, phenomenological exploration of um, women who are out of marriage, or who have left their marriage, so divorced women. So you may have documents to go through. Interviews, of course, for grounded theory. Observation is missing there, even observation. Ethnography, also observation and interviews, and case study also observation and interviews, and also case study if it involves one in particular individuals or groups, or if you are case studying an agency or a company or an institution, then of course you have to go through the relevant documents. So though this is not comprehensive, it does not include everything, but these are common forms of data collection. Again, in data analysis strategy, in the narrative, we have restoring the stories. So the stories should be structured, that is, analyzed with a purpose, into developing themes, mostly using time as the criteria, sometimes also space or geography. So history and geography. In phenomenology, you analyze the underlying meanings of statements, which will try to describe what actually the experience felt like. The essence of essence means what the reader should be able to understand what it was like, not what it was like in form of in just describing it was like this, but what it was felt like. Okay, and grounded theory is underlying similarities, patterns, and then forming them into codes and bringing out the themes, contributing or adding to theories. Ethnography, again, describing or bringing out categories or bringing out themes in form of different domains, like language, dress, activities, beliefs, worships, etc. And case studies, if you have one case, it will be an in-depth intra-case analysis. It may be, again, chronological, it may be spatial, it may be thematic. And if it is, if there are more than one case, of course, intra-case and inter-case analysis should be analyzed. Themes should be analyzed and brought out so that a comparison can be made. And finally, the research outcomes. What do you want the research to look like? Or what do you want your research to produce as something which you can present to the community, to the world? Narratives, like, mostly it comes in the form of stories or accounts, narrations, experiences, and they are usually done by, people from the humanities background. They have the different the outcome, and in the form of narratives, or in the form of a diary, a journal, and they will be interesting, and the stories should be supplemented with photographs, with um, verbatim phrases, etc. In phenomenology, there should be certain themes which should be brought out, comparative categories, so that there may be places or locations where there can be interventions for improvement, interventions for more utilization, interventions or understanding for reduction, or helping or hand-holding of the people who have experienced that particular phenomenon. So collapse into certain themes or categories is necessary, so as to help, or so as to bring forward the experiences of the phenomena under study. In grounded theory, concepts should be coming out of the research, relationships among concepts, and finally bringing it into a theoretical form, as the name suggests. And in ethnography, the culture should be described in toto, and inside it there should be understanding of exactly what is there, exactly what are the common patterns which are practiced, what are the common themes that come out in terms of use of language, in terms of use of practices in worship, in practices in health, health cure, and case studies, of course, a description of the case, and intra-case and inter-case thematic analysis. So these should be what your research is adapting to the different research designs should be having at the end of the research. So I think, there is also one more slide, and this is the last slide. So there's a summary of the research designs of narrative research design, phenomenological studies, grounded theory, and ethnography studies. Narrative study focuses on an individual who illustrates a particular experience by gathering data through observations and conversations. Phenomenological studies rooted in the lives of people, in their lived experiences, essence or understanding of the individuals studied through interviews. Grounded theory involves the creation of a theory through data collected and organized relative to a theoretical model. And ethnographic studies focus on culture sharing groups and their behavior. So this is in a nutshell the understanding of the four research designs. And these are some of the references, and these are some of the journals which you can go through for continuing your journey in qualitative research designs. And there are very good online, some very good articles, dissertations available uh, in qualitative research, which have followed qualitative research. And there is no end to reading or learning on qualitative research, because every day, every issue of the journal, I find that new variants, new techniques, and this the method of analysis, and you may employ both your understanding or mechanical analysis, or you may also use computer programs, but ultimately it will boil down to your understanding of the essence of qualitative research designs, or where you should actually want to employ qualitative research design, what type of field reality you would like to reflect, would you would like to probe. And you may read on similar articles related to your discipline, but just for the sake of knowing also, it is good. You never know where in the future you may need to collaborate on with other people of this particular um, believing in qualitative research design. So it is always nice to know the different types of designs, both qualitative and quantitative, so as to choose or make the right choice. Okay, so that much for my side. If you have anything to ask me, then you may ask.